All right, so let's talk about testosterone. This is going to be the only guide that you're going to need on test. If you ever have questions, just come back to this video and guaranteed the answer is going to be in here. Now, this is going to be a no fluff guide. I didn't put any bullshit in here that you're not going to use. Everything that you see in here, you're definitely going to use. So it's not going to be some watered down science-based video. This is going to be results-based of how to use it, how to manage the side effects, how to control estrogen, and how do I get results with it. Okay, so by the end of it, you're going to know how to run it for dosing, whether that's going to be for TRT, muscle gain, and how to control estrogen, how often you should be dosing, what type of testosterone to run, how to manage the side effects before they become problems, and what blood work markers you need to keep track of before the cycle, during the cycle, and after, and whether this is going to be a good option for you or not, because some people it's not. So why you'd even want to do this, most men really have no idea how they're supposed to feel. They don't understand their hormones. They don't understand what high T feels like. They don't understand what low T feels like. And it's silent. This does not happen overnight. Energy dips, your drive softens, your recovery slows down, your libido drops, and most guys, they just adjust to it instead of actually fixing the root cause of the problem. So most guys, they're running at a fraction of what their potential could be, and they're calling it, they're just getting older, especially after the age of 30. What TRT and testosterone actually feels like is you wake up more recovered, you train hard, you bounce back quicker, your drive is back, your head is clear. You feel like that version of you that's supposed to show up every day, like when you were 20 years old or even in your teenage years. That's kind of that mental clarity that you want, that you get back. So step one is you have to understand what testosterone is responsible for. It's going to be responsible for muscle growth, recovery, mood, cognition, libido, sleep quality, body composition, motivation, just everything in general about a man is usually controlled by testosterone. So it touches almost everything that makes you feel like yourself. And step two, there's in range and then there's optimal. A lab and a doctor can call you normal for being 300 to 600 nanograms per deciliter on a testosterone test, while you sit there and you feel like shit, you sleep like shit, and you recover like shit. Normal is not the same as optimal. The range is huge, and where you land inside really changes everything. Step three, the opportunity cost of waiting. Every year spent being suboptimal is a year worse training, worse recovery, worse presence, and lost progress that you don't get back, especially after 30 as your levels naturally decline. Most guys normalize this for years before realizing testosterone was the problem. And before I continue, if you don't know already, my name is Connor. If this is your first time to the channel, I have a coaching program that helps guys go from natty to enhanced, how to run their cycles correctly so they can manage all the side effects and do this the best way possible. I have guys that come to me fat. Myself, I was fat before I got started in this to a crazy physique. I have some guys that come to me pretty lean, pretty skinny, and they want to put on some lean mass. I have guys that have been doing this for years, but they just didn't have the right protocols. They didn't have the right dosing. They didn't know what worked well for their body. And then I have guys that just use peptides and want some results with fat loss. Now, let's go over the main concerns that guys have when they hear about TRT. Most guys are like, oh, I don't even know if my test levels are low. And what happens is they're not tested. Most doctors are not testing people's testosterone. Unless you specifically ask for it, they're not testing for it. They're going off of symptoms of being tired, flat, soft, low drive, which could be testosterone, or it could just be shitty sleep, stress, body fat. Without these numbers, you're really flying blind. Before you go out there and say that you have test levels that are already in range or you think you're fine, just go get a baseline panel done. It's like $100 to $150 just for the base testing for testosterone. It's super cheap considering the lifetime of problems you can have if you do have low T. The other is people tell me I should maximize my natural potential first. Look, this is a double-edged sword. For some guys, the low energy, the soft physique, and a low drive are really coming from a shitty lifestyle. Bad sleep, high body fat, they're not going to the gym regularly, they've got crazy amount of stress, they're drinking on the weekends. So yeah, fixing like the bare minimum, yeah, that will bring their testosterone levels back up. But for a lot of guys, maximizing your natural potential, it just becomes years of wasted time in the gym. If you're trying to really make something of this, you need the extra help. With that being said, settle it, go get the blood work done, see what your baseline is, dial in your lifestyle habits, your sleep, your training, get your body fat down, cut out the alcohol, retest, see where you're at. You're either recovered and need nothing, or you're still low and that's your green light to just hop on. Either way, fixing your lifestyle is going to be one of the biggest keys. Is my balls going to shrink? When you hop on testosterone, your brain senses, okay, there's enough testosterone already. We do not need to produce more LH and FSH, the hormones that tell your testes to produce, so they will do less work and over time they're going to shrink. But there is a solution, and this is reversible and preventable at the same time. HCG is a medication that you can take that is the answer to testicular shrinkage. What it does is it tells your body to naturally increase the LH signal, and it keeps your testes active. So it holds the size and the function without having to come off testosterone. When you start that from the very beginning, you prevent all the problems. If you decide you don't want to run it and you want to run it at a future date, you can kickstart your production again and just add in the HCG. I'm afraid of getting gyno, like completely. That's understandable, but estrogen is absolutely essential for libido, your joints, gaining muscle, your mood, and bones. Gyno comes from the imbalance of estrogen, not it just existing in your body. A lot of guys, they hear estrogen, they're like, oh, that's the female hormone. That's not right. I shouldn't have that. No, you need estrogen. Trust me. Having low estrogen is really shitty. The way to manage it is through dose frequency and only use an AI if you absolutely have to, but you need to get blood work during the testosterone cycle to see where your estrogen is to be able to prevent gyno. What if I want kids later? This is a super common one. So what happens when you get on is your production is suppressed and your fertility takes a hit. That could be a good thing if you look at it that way. Otherwise, it is manageable. When you want to have kids, you take a medication called FSH and HMG. FSH is the raw fertility hormone that is responsible for driving pregnancy. HMG is the medication and it contains raw FSH in it. This is the answer to all fertility steroid related issues. This is what bodybuilders and everyone takes to get their wives pregnant. HCG can help. It can get you results, but if you want a sure way to get your partner pregnant, HMG and FSH. You can take these without having to come off testosterone. There's no reason to come off testosterone, feel like shit for months, to have your levels maybe come back. There's no need for that. You just take HMG and FSH while you're on. Am I going to go bald? It really comes down to genetics, dosing, and what compounds that you're going to be running. The problem is with DHT. When you start increasing into higher doses or you take DHT compounds like Masteron or Primobolan, those are the things that are really going to rip your hair out. If you have in your family, like your dad's bald, your grandfather's bald, like you're probably going to go bald if you run some of these compounds. If you're really concerned about it, you can take two drugs called finasteride, dutasteride that lower DHT. DHT is the hormone that's responsible for ripping out your hair if it's too high, and minoxidil. Minoxidil is going to help regrow your hair. If it really matters to you that much, you just hop on these while you're on testosterone or other anabolics, and there is a solution. So when guys realize, oh, testosterone might be for me, the first thing that they do is they usually go to a TRT clinic. And TRT clinics can be good, but let me tell you the truth. The clinic model is built to sell. It's not made to optimize their patient's health. They'll prescribe to almost anyone. You could walk in, you can call into these clinics. A lot of them are online now, and you're walking out with a script regardless of whether it's the right call or whether there's an underlying issue that could have been addressed first. The lifestyle habits, the drinking, the poor quality of sleep, the body fat percentage. There's tons that you can fix first, but the default is they put you on an AI right out the gate. So you're walking out with a prescription for 120 milligrams of testosterone and an aromatase inhibitor on day one. They're basically telling you take an AI on day one without even seeing what your estrogen levels are on 120 milligrams of test. So what happens is you get crashed estrogen that feels worse than low T. Your joints feel like shit. You have zero libido, flat mood. Imagine low T, but even worse is what low estrogen feels like. And that's when the guys, they just blame the testosterone. They're like, oh, TRT is not for me. I had a bad experience, when their clinic was just doing them a disservice, and they're providing them basically with these cookie cutter protocols. So same dose, same ester, the same AIs that everyone walks out with. And they tell them some weird dosing of one big shot every 2 weeks or a shot once a week. And that creates these big peaks and these big crashes. And that's something that you just really want to avoid. What a good doctor does is they test first, then they provide the treatment. They see what your blood work comes back as, they see what your lifestyle habits are, fix those first, come back, retest, and then give you a testosterone prescription. Now, when you get the testosterone prescription, they're going to have you on it for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Then they're going to retest, see what your blood levels are at, and then see if estrogen is actually a problem or not. because for most guys at 120 milligrams, you will not need an AI. So regardless, it's important to know, and it's important to retest at that point to see, okay, is it in range? Is it not in range? Do we need to add the AI or do we not? That's what good doctors do. Now, I will say what TRT clinics are good for is they do give you a legitimate script that you could travel with versus trying to get it in other places. So it does help. Step one is going to be for blood work. Now, I'm going to make a separate video on this because this is going to be just too much to go on a deep dive in right now. There's more important parts to this guide. The most important thing that you need to keep in mind is you need to get baseline testing before you hop on testosterone. It needs to include your total test, your free estradiol sensitive. It needs to be the sensitive test, not the standard test. And you can specifically pick that when you order on quest.com or labcore.com. Your SHBG, your LH and FSH, prolactin, your CBC, a comprehensive metabolic panel, your lipids and ApoB, PSA, thyroid, and your fasting glucose and HbA1c. Now, the markers that are not driven by testosterone but are super important, especially on cycle, these are the tests that you want to get to confirm that everything is functioning correctly. So the GGT is going to tell you if your liver is actually good or not. ApoB is going to be the one that's counting the particles that gives you cardiovascular disease. The number is more important than the actual lipids themselves. You could have high cholesterol or low cholesterol. Your ApoB is the score that actually matters. It's the particle count. It's not the amount of cholesterol in the blood that actually matters. Your cystatin C, thyroid, free T3, reverse T3, and HbA1c. So during the cycle itself, you need to retest every 6 to 8 weeks once your levels have stabilized at your dose. A lot of the longer esters like testosterone cypionate and enanthate, it takes a while before they kick in and actually stabilize in your blood. Usually around 6 to 8 weeks is when stuff is stable, and then you can retest, see where you're at, and then go from there. Otherwise, stick to doing blood work every quarter, or if you come across some problems like high blood pressure, gyno signs, or your libido is kind of off, then you can do some of those tests. And when you do those tests to monitor during a cycle, the most important ones are going to be your total test, your free test, estradiol, which is estrogen, your hematocrit, hemoglobin. This is the number one marker and number one silent killer of bodybuilders is blood thickness. And then the lipids, ApoB, comprehensive metabolic panel, and prolactin. Okay. So baseline testing, really going to tell you where you started. You're going to have something to compare to when you hop on. And step two, understanding dosing, frequency, and half-lives. So stable blood levels, they are essential, but how often you dose matters as much as how much you dose. Half-life is just how long the drug stays active before it drops by half. You have long-acting esters and short-acting. Testosterone enanthate and cypionate, they're very similar. They are longer. They need fewer injections. Testosterone propionate is shorter. It clears super quick, so it needs daily injections. So why stability matters? Stable levels mean fewer side effects. You're gonna have a better mood, better energy, smoother overall experience. The big peaks and crashes are where most of the problems come from. So chasing convenience with infrequent, larger doses is gonna cause a bigger peak, a bigger crash, and more side effects. Dosing for a steady state is going to give you smooth, predictable, and easier to manage side effects. Now, on a visual scale, this is 200 milligrams total of weekly testosterone dosage. If you were to dose it once a week, right here is your first dose. This is when the drug peaks. Then it has a dip before your next dose. Then you have the peak and the valley. The steeper the peak and the deeper the valley is when you have estrogen imbalance and you have a greater chance for side effects. So if you dose it twice a week, you have less peaks and less valleys that are not so crazy. And then if you do daily, it's basically a straight line across the board. Daily injections are the best, hands down. For dosing ranges, you have TRT, TRT plus, and growth doses. For tier 1, the TRT optimization health phase, ultimately you're going to be running 120 milligrams to 180 milligrams a test. It's going to restore optimal function, longevity, feeling your best, having some confidence. Your injection is going to be 2 to 3 times weekly minimum. More stable levels equals minimal side effects. So fully sustainable long-term, you could run TRT. On your blood work, you're not going to see a lot of changes. And then based on my experience, baseline life just feels more enjoyable. Like everything seems more consistent. Training, recovery, fat burning. Mentally, I felt pretty decent. Everything was just stable and consistent versus these up and downs that I would normally feel. But I didn't gain a lot of size at this dose. There's tons of these Instagram gurus, these TikTok guys that say 200 milligrams a test is all you need. No, it's not. If you want to put on some serious mass, you're not running 200 milligrams of test. You're definitely taking more. For the TRT plus range, the cruise area, you're going to be taking 200 to 500 milligrams a week. That's going to be lean recomposition. You're sitting slightly above the natural ceiling while staying pretty health conscious. Your frequency is also 2 to 3 times a week minimum to continue your stable levels. And what to expect, you're going to notice a lot of changes with your physique and your performance as well. But it does come with some side effects that you have to manage. So your blood work is going to be more important in this range. You got to watch your estrogen. You got to watch your hematocrit more closely. My experience, sleep feels great. You have deeper, more vivid dreams. Your recovery is quicker. Your confidence does noticeably increase here. 100 milligrams plus, you're going to be like, wow, I feel great. Even at 250 milligrams, you could be like, I feel awesome because you've never tried it before. It's fresh. It's new. A lot of people can gain some serious size off of 500 milligrams of test, especially for their first few cycles. But after a while, if you've been doing this for a few years, 500 mgs of test, it just doesn't do the same. And that's when you start the performance and muscle growth phase. This is when you're running 500 to 1,000 milligrams of test, and you're getting a ton of muscle in this phase. So 2 to 3 times a week minimum for dosing, but you really need to try to do daily to manage the estrogen because estrogen is going to be a lot higher at this dose. So what to expect, you're gaining a shitload of muscle, one of my favorite cycles, but it does come with the high estrogen, which has to be under control or else you're getting gyno. Now for blood work, it's going to be at its highest. You need to manage it very closely. In my experience, this is where I could say I got the same confidence and libido increase that Tren usually gives. And that says a lot. The libido increase, it could really get out of hand, pun intended, especially if you're running 750 plus. But I gained so much size at 750. And then when I bumped it up to a gram, it was just ridiculous, the amount of size that I gained. Of course, my diet and training was on point, but I really had to be on top of my estrogen. I had to do daily injections. I had to manage my AI, but I got lots of size off of that cycle. It's crazy because people will take happily Tren, Anadrol, Superdrol, D-Bol, Halo, all these harsh compounds before taking 1 gram of test. Like that shit makes no sense to me. All these exotic compounds that come with a laundry list of side effects. When it's like test, we've had it for the longest time now. It is the most studied compound. We know what it does. We know the worst that can happen is your estrogen gets high and some DHT issues in the higher doses, but we know how to manage those. But when you take stuff like Tren that alters your mind and Anadrol or Superdrol that absolutely destroys and wrecks your blood work and liver, it makes no sense to me why you just wouldn't run a higher test cycle rather than try to reinvent the wheel and try these other compounds that come with tons of side effects. So with that being said, TRT versus running for growth, TRT is a replacement. You're really just trying to get your life to a baseline. Growth is a tool. You cannot sustain running 500 mgs to 1,000 mgs of test year round. It's just not possible. Your dopamine receptors start to get numb when you run it for a long period of time, and you need to bring it back down to a TRT dose to refresh your dopamine receptors. So let's jump into step 3, side effects and how to manage them. So the golden rule is always to adjust one variable at a time. Don't change 6 things and then go get retested. Change one thing and then go get retested. Now, most of your problems with testosterone are going to come from estrogen. All of this can be avoided if you're able to get your estrogen on lock. Symptoms of high estrogen is going to be water retention, swollen nipples, high blood pressure. The low end is going to be dead libido, achy joints, bad mood, low sleep. And the marker you're going to test for is estradiol. Ideal range is going to be 20 to 60. I personally feel amazing at 30 to 50. Anything below 20, I have that little depression cloud that kind of follows around. I feel flat, and anything below 10, I feel like my joints are going to break. Now, how to fix it? You got to pull blood work. Split your dose into more frequent shots should be your first step. Second step should be to drop your dose. And third step should be to add an AI as a last resort. Retest in 4 to 6 weeks and don't crash your estrogen. It's not worth blasting an AI, taking it every day, trying to lower that number. It's much better to stick to a protocol, retest, and see where you're at. And for gyno, it is really easy to prevent. It is always caused by high estrogen or high prolactin. Prolactin is usually raised from Tren and DECA use. As long as you keep those two under control, you're going to be good to go. Gyno is a lump or puffy breast tissue that starts to develop under the nipples. If you do run into that issue, you need to get blood work to assess, is it going to be an estrogen problem or is it going to be a prolactin problem? Because you're going to address the two differently. Nolvadex is going to fix a estrogen problem. P5P is going to fix a prolactin problem. P is a natural supplement and it usually helps, but worst case scenario, you can add in something like cabergoline, which is a dopamine agonist drug, or pramipexole, but that is like worst case. If you catch a lump early, Nolvadex is going to fix it and it's going to shrink its size. But if it gets out of hand, this guy, this is just complete neglect. He had no idea what the fuck he was doing. And this, you need surgery to remove. And in America, it usually costs around 8 to 10 grand. What they do is they go in and they cut underneath the nipple right here. And then they go in, remove the gland, because you have to specifically tell your doctor to remove the whole gland. Some doctors in the US will leave a little bit so it looks cosmetically okay. Like his, it looks like it's a little bit indented because he had a large amount. If you don't want it to ever come back again, you tell that doctor like, hey, rip the whole fucking thing out. I don't want it to come back. And then Asia, it's around 5K. For acne and oily skin, you could get some breakouts on your face, your shoulder, your back, have super oily skin, but 80 to 90% of the time, that's going to be caused by estrogen. So as long as that's within range, you should be okay. But it's also genetic. My acne was terrible when I first started because I already had acne to begin with. Then I added hormones and it was basically putting fuel on a fire. I tried every antibiotic under the fucking sun and none of it worked. The only thing that worked was Accutane. That shit was magical. It brought my confidence back. Before, I had cheese grater acne on my fucking chest and back. I was embarrassed, never want to take my shirt off. Accutane saved my life, and I think it is such an amazing drug. They try to scare you doctors and not put you on it because it has lots of side effects. I've talked to so many people, especially in the bodybuilding space, that have run Accutane, and the side effects are not that crazy. As long as you stick to it, you're getting blood work done with it to make sure your liver is okay. It's an amazing drug. Like it's a game changer. But for TRT purposes, most of the time, you're not going to get acne. It's when you start pushing into the growth phase doses of 500 milligrams plus, even past 250 milligrams, some guys will break out. So it just really depends. What you could do is just drop the dose, add in a skincare routine. You could try switching different carrier oils. TRT clinics, they compound in grapeseed oil, cottonseed oil, or MCT oil. MCT is going to be the best. I know for me, grapeseed, when I inject it, I usually get like a golf ball in my shoulder and it just swells up and I usually break out around the injection site. And I didn't know that until I switched to a different carrier oil. And another thing too, I went years without acne after Accutane, but then I tried a new lab that I was using for testosterone and I started breaking out again. I was like, what is this? I ended up switching labs again and then the acne went away. So the worst case, you could just switch your source and switch your labs and see if that fixes it. And then for libido and mood swings, so you could feel really, really good and then feel really, really bad. Or you just feel super flat, your joints start to creak, and it's usually because your estrogen is sub 20. Get the blood work done, cut back on the AI as that's most likely going to be the problem, or take it out completely. Check your prolactin levels one variable at a time, give it time, and then recheck. And then blood pressure and water retention. With this, you're going to have a puffy face, headaches, bloating, elevated readings. Get a blood pressure cuff and measure in the morning and then measure at night. Make sure you are sitting down, wait for like 5-10 minutes so everything starts to calm down and then you'll get an accurate reading. I let this go for years. I had gotten sick and I needed to go to urgent care and I got my blood pressure tested for the first time where I was actually paying attention. And it was 180 over 120 and the nurse was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. Is that not normal? She's like, no, it's not normal. We're going to prescribe you a blood pressure medication. And then I started doing research into it. And I was like, oh, this is a serious problem. I'm glad that I caught that early and I didn't let that go on for 10 plus years because blood pressure is one of the silent killers for most bodybuilders, most people that are trying to hop on hormones. All right, coming back up here to high hematocrit and thick blood, you're going to get headaches, flushing. You're going to feel thick, kind of heavy. When your numbers are over 54 on blood work, you need to go donate blood ASAP. That's the only thing that's going to get that number to drop immediately, especially if it's that high. The other thing you can do is increase your water intake and cut excess sodium, and also probably drop the dose in whatever compound you're taking, or if you're taking EQ, this is going to be the primary cause. Oh, that's actually funny. I had a picture of Dan Bilzerian over here. So in his book, he had mentioned that he had to go to the hospital once because he thought it was from drugs and it was actually from the fucking EQ. His blood was so thick that he passed out and he had to go to the hospital. And so that's one side effect that you really got to be cautious with when you're running EQ. Some people do not tolerate it well and their numbers creep up to 54 very, very quickly. Me personally, I'm able to run it, no problems, and my numbers stay within range. It's an amazing compound that works well for me. And for hair loss and shedding, at the end of the day, this is going to come from your genetics ultimately. If your dad's bald, if you got balding in the family, if you run compound compounds like primobolan or masteron, it's going to speed up the process a lot. 3 drugs that you could take to help lower this risk are going to be finasteride or dutasteride. It's going to help lower DHT. And then you could try minoxidil to support regrowth. Those are the 3 drugs that will help you prevent this problem from happening. But at the end of the day, if this is a big concern of yours, just don't touch primobolan or masteron and don't go crazy high in your test doses. If you're just running TRT, you're going to be okay. And when something feels off, the standard protocol is going to be pull blood work before changing anything. Check your estrogen first, as it's going to drive most of the side effects. Check your hematocrit, match every number to your symptoms, change one variable only, and then retest in 4 to 6 weeks before you change something else. Dose and frequency are going to be your first levers, and then drugs to mask side effects are going to be the last resort. So the wrong way is to panic and just start slamming an AI every day or take Nolvadex every day, hoping that's going to, solve all your problems. Or blame the testosterone or blame the protocol or blame the TRT clinic. This is a learning process. You're not going to get it right out the gate. It may take a few months before you dial everything in. The right way is you spot one cause, confirm with blood work, change one thing, and then retest. So putting all that into action that you just learned is follow the path. You get your blood work done, interpret the results, design your protocol, monitor and adjust. Super easy. Avoid the common beginner mistakes. We covered everything, so it's almost impossible for you to make a mistake at this point. And set some realistic time expectations. You're not going to get this right in the first 4 weeks, the first 8 weeks. It may take 3 months, 4 months, 6 months before you dial everything in where you feel completely comfortable and you're like, okay, I've optimized everything. I can check this off my list and this was worth it. All right, and to recap, you now have a complete idea how to run testosterone, what type, how to dose it, how to read your blood work, how to manage everything that comes up. Done right, this is one of the highest leverage things a man can do for his body and his life. Done wrong, it can cause a shitload of problems. So the difference is knowledge and monitoring, and that's exactly what we just went over. And if you feel like you still need help and you want this done one-on-one with you, go ahead and book a call in the description. We'll go over your current situation, your blood work, see where you're at, and create a protocol that's specifically designed for you. All right, guys, I will see you on the next video.